Next, we hear Bartok's Third Piano Concerto, a work written very late in Bartok's career, one which he himself did not live to finish. As a matter of fact, his friend and compatriot Tibor Serli orchestrated what I believe were the last 13 bars of this work, which was otherwise complete as far as the notes themselves were concerned. Halsey Stevens, who has written the most thoroughgoing biography of the composer so far in English, has the following observations to make about the work. The serenity of the Third Piano Concerto is remarkable among Bartok's larger works. His progressive trend toward both structural and tonal lucidity is exemplified throughout the score. In both texture and orchestration, there is extreme clarity, sometimes to the point of tenuousness. The first theme, a highly ornamented song-like melody, apparently influenced by the Romanian doina, is presented in pure form, doubled in single notes 2 octaves apart in the piano, with a minimum of accompaniment in the second violins and violas. The rest of the movement is treated with the same reticence or tenderness. The other movements have more striking qualities. The Adagio religioso, with its rather naive chorale, embracing a trio in the night music idiom, and the energetic concluding rondo, which contains some of Bartok's most spontaneous fugal writing. The trio is based upon actual bird calls, which Bartok had notated in Asheville, North Carolina in 1944. Perhaps it isn't totally coincidental that this work, apparently intended for his wife, Dita Pasteri Bartok, reverts to the mood of the out-of-doors movement dedicated to her nearly 20 years earlier. Nelson Freire, the pianist in the Bartok concerto we're about to hear, began his career in a rather interesting way. The story has it that he began it when he was 3 by climbing onto the piano bench after hearing his sister play and repeating, without error, every note she'd played. He's now 26. When he was 12, he was the first prize winner at Rio de Janeiro's international competition and won out over 80 other pianists. In 1964, he won both the Dinu Lipati Medal in London and the Viana da Mota Prize in Lisbon. He made his American debut here with the Los Angeles Philharmonic under Pierre Boulez in 1969. He's toured the country twice since then, and he's played in nearly every major city of the world. Most of all, he concertizes throughout South America, Spain, Portugal, Holland, Austria, Scandinavia, Germany, and England. Madame Bartok, by the way, distraught after the death of Bartok, returned to Hungary and has been in a rather tenuous mental state ever since that time. She's prevailed upon by Hungarians from time to time to do a bit of recording, and finally she has actually gotten around to recording herself this Third Piano Concerto in Hungary, the work which was dedicated to her. And now, Nelson Freire comes forward, followed by Gerhard Samuel, and together they perform Bartok's last completed work, his Piano Concerto No. 3. You've heard Brazilian pianist Nelson Freire performing Bartok's Piano Concerto No. 3 with the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra, conducted by its associate conductor, Gerhard Samuel. Mr. Freire and Mr. Samuel turn to each other and clasp hands. And now Mr. Freire shakes the hand of David Fazina, the orchestra's concertmaster. Mr. Samuel asks the entire orchestra to rise and share this applause. And now they leave the stage. After the last bar of the third piano concerto, Bartok has written the Hungarian word "vage," the end. The late Ferry Roth, leader of the Roth Quartet, was a compatriot of Bartok and spent much time with him.
I think that Bartok was a very great pianist. But because Hungarian music, Hungarian peasant music, has a certain percussive quality, he took over this percussive quality into his playing. When he was criticized as a pianist, he was not criticized because he didn't have a magnificent technique or a great deal of expression and emotion in his playing. He was criticized because he was very percussive. But this percussiveness was very typical on Hungarian music and Hungarian peasant kind of performance.
And the cymbalin, too, was a rather percussive-sounding instrument.
Yes, and while this toccata-like playing, that was very typical on Bartok. I remember we were playing in Monza and in other places with him some Mozart piano quartets. He played with the quartet. He played Mozart heavenly with all this somewhat percussive quality. It was very, it was a little bit like a sound of a harpsichord.
Oh.
But certainly Mozart, it was not very far from harpsichord kind of playing and sound. And in one concert when we played a Mozart piano quartet, this happened in Monza. After the first movement, he looked very uncomfortable. And I was looking to him, and he said, "Could you move a little bit on the side?" And he was showing me the place how he should move. Because there was in the first row in the audience a lady who was fanning herself. It was a hot day, in a different rhythm than he played. So he was very uncomfortable, and I was moving to cover her up. But I was in a very difficult position because from then on I got this bad rhythm, so I had to turn my face away. But this was a joke too.
Bartok was a very precise man as a musician. You were in many rehearsals with him, rehearsing his own music. What kinds of things would he work for with you?
He was the most precise kind of musician, the most exact, the most demanding. In these rehearsals I just want to mention you two things. When it came to the tempo had to be just that, and no slower and no faster. Sometimes he would control himself. He would mark the tempo with a certain tempo marking of the metronome, and he would take out a pocket metronome. I don't know if you know those.
No.
He would take out and control himself if he's right. And then he said, "This has to be." He was exactly asking the same tempo and the timing. And sometimes we have arrived to a place where he was asking a great deal of brutality and barbaric handling of the instruments. And once I told him, "Bela, I have a beautiful Italian instrument. I just cannot handle it that way." He made a face to let me to understand that he is not interested in this beautiful instrument. He's interested only in the music, and it has to be brutal, and it has to be harsh, and that's what it is.
Bartok, in some ways, must have come under the influence of Stravinsky, or do you think that he did? There's, speaking of percussive effects, one thinks of Stravinsky.
In these many years that I was playing with him and met him in privately or in trains or in rehearsals. Once in a while, we were starting to talk about composers. Let me tell you that I was asking or mentioning composers like Schoenberg and Stravinsky and others. He didn't give any criticism of the others. Matter of fact, I could say that he didn't like to talk about the others. He did like to talk about his friend and colleague Kodály. And he did it because he knew that the Hungarian young composers and music world was really grouping into two. One that followed Kodály, one that followed Bartok, though they were the greatest friends. And he was always trying to bring us to understand, to have a great respect for Kodály. Though Kodály was the most conventional, the most conservative composer who was very much influenced by the French Impressionists in the beginning, because he was looking for something else. And Bartok was the international genius, the great master, who took all this material and idea of Kodály and made a big thing out of it. But he didn't talk about other composers a great deal.
How was Bartok as a pedagogue? Did you see him teaching others?
He was a great teacher.
What was his method? What was his approach?
His method was not to mix up 20th century methods and ideas into the teaching of the piano. The most interesting thing that is going to interest you very much, that in the Academy of Music in Budapest, which is one of the greatest musical institutions in the world, where such people were teaching as Hubai and Dohnányi and Bartók and Kodály and Leo Weiner and all the great Hungarian composers and teachers, Bartók was not allowed to teach composition.
Oh.
He was teaching the piano. So whatever we know about his teaching, it is teaching the piano. Because, you see, these official leadership of Hungary in his time and in my time as a student was a very conservative one. Nobody could compose like Bartók. It was the conventional type. So that was too progressive, it was too radical for teaching composition. Matter of fact, at this point I can tell you that Bartók didn't believe in teaching composition. But matter of fact, he said it many times, I don't know how to teach composition. Let me tell you an example. We had a concert in the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia one Sunday afternoon. And we left New York together without our families. While we were on the train and while we were arriving to Philadelphia, well, let me tell you, the concert started, that this little man, Bartók, came on the stage, and the whole faculty and the students of the Curtis Institute were standing up and gave him a standing ovation while he was starting to play his compositions. We played the first Rhapsody for violin and piano together, and when the concert was over, I told him, I'm sure that the president, Randall Thompson was the president of Curtis Institute at that time, is going to ask you in his office and is going to offer you some kind of a teaching position at Curtis Institute. And you know, Bela, that you need the money very much. He was in an awful financial condition that time. Exactly that happened. After the concert, Randall Thompson came and asked Bartók into his office, and I was giving him a last look that he shouldn't forget that, and he went into the office, and very soon he came out of the office, and I asked him, going back on the train, what happened? Well, he said to me that Randall Thompson was offering him a job with a very good salary, and he didn't take the position because he said, I just don't know how to teach composition.